Today, we are going to be rounding decimals. That's it, just rounding. There's no front end estimation, none of that. Now, the purpose of rounding numbers, okay, is to get an idea of how much, okay? If I said all the fifth graders in the school right now are going to have a party, and we need to have some waters, you know, small bottled waters for the party for everyone, how would we find out how many to get?
Round.
We would round. So in here, you guys have 16 total, and my class has 19 total. So in here, you've got about 15. It's a round number, or we could round it up and say 20, okay? My class, since it's 19, we'd round it to 20. So 20 and 20, how many bottles would we get? 40. Now, if I needed to know an exact amount, I would take 16, add it to the 19, get 35, and I'd need 35 bottles. Well, I know that if I go to the grocery store, I don't think they have a 35 pack. I've seen a 36 pack, which is actually 3 dozen. Because in a dozen, there's 12. So 3 dozen is 36. 3 times 12 is 36. There's also a 40 pack. Okay? So that's what they're doing, is you're trying to come up with an estimate. Okay? They don't want the exact amount, but they want a close amount. They are going to round to, today you're going to be rounding to different times, different places, okay? And they are going to have different numbers for you to round. If you were to round to that number, this is the tenths, that's the hundredths, that's the thousands. They are having you round to the hundredths place. Okay? What would it be? Anybody want to take a shot at it? Shot. Huh?
8.
This?
You change that to a 90?
It'd be what?
You change that to a 90?
You would change this to a 9. The 8 to a 9. Now, does it affect these numbers? So we're going to put those down. This 8, what it's looking at is the 7. Is the 7 5 or greater? If it is, then we say yes, and you're going to add 1 to this, and so then all of a sudden this becomes a 9. Okay? Does everyone see that? Okay? Wait. We stick with the colors. This one was rounded to the nearest hundredth. This one we're going to round to the nearest tenth. It's going to get tricky. Okay? Just warning you. Jackson.
The 9's gonna go to a 1.
9's going to go to a what?
A 1. So you go to 10. 0.
A 0. Thank you. Thank you, George. It's going to go to a 0. Why is it going to a 0?
Because it went to a 10?
Because it went to a 10. This 8 says you got to add 1 here. Since you're adding 1 it's gonna make this become a 10, you're gonna end up carrying the 1 over. You're gonna end up with 3.0. And over here, this becomes a 0, that becomes a 0, and that becomes a 0. Everything behind it, behind where the number is that you're doing, becomes 0. So that behind the 8, this 7 tells it to be a 9, but then that becomes a 0. Okay? So if I rounded this number to the nearest 10th, it would be 3. Okay? Or 3.000. If I rounded this number to the nearest 100th, it would be 2.99. Okay? And there you have 2 of them that are done. Now, the other one that they may ask you to do and these are the exact words that they have. To the nearest whole number. Where is the whole number?
987.
Where is the whole number? George?
The 2.
The 2. Because everything on the other side of the decimal is part of a number. This side is the whole numbers. Okay? So basically, without putting that there, when they say round to the nearest whole number, you're rounding to the nearest 1. Okay? So in this case, George, since you got us to this, finish it.
3.000. Oh.
Everything behind there becomes zeros. This 9 tells it to go up 1. So you're gonna add 1 to the 2, and it becomes a 3. Okay? So, in review, you are rounding to the nearest 100th, to the nearest 10th, to the nearest whole number, okay, today. And basically, that is it. You are just rounding. Now, when they say, when they give you money, round it to the nearest 10 cents. What are they asking you to do, Joseph?
Round it to 3.
You're rounding it to this, right? So if you rounded it to that,
30.
got all these colors. The 4 isn't enough to go up 1. It's 5 and below, or 4 and below. So it's gonna keep the 3 the same, okay? Now, what happens if they said to round it to the nearest this is nearest dime. Nearest dollar. Dollar. Okay? You're rounding it to the nearest dollar. Gabby? What are we rounding it to?
The 5?
To the
No.
5. So what would it be?
it will be 4, 5, and then the 3 and the 4 is gonna be 0.
Because the 3 back here tells it it's not enough to raise it another $1. Okay? This is the same thing as these two. It's just this is money, and that doesn't have the $sign to it. Okay? It's the same thing. So you have to the nearest 100, to the nearest 10th, to the nearest whole number. You also have the 10th and the whole number are also the nearest dime, or nearest 10 cent, or the nearest $. Okay? Any questions over that? Turned off.